Now at 10 and streaming on crossroadstoday.com, the husband of Goliad's mayor banned from council meetings. Trash is dumped in a part of Ganado and police there want information. And the recently fired police chief of Eagle Lake speaking out against the allegations made against him.
Well, the big news in the weather office is not the heat. That's old news. The new news, we've got two possible tropical systems in the Atlantic. One of them is already known as Brett. We'll be talking about the other one, but the extreme heat, that's our headline. We'll be back with more.
And local gymnasts are competing for nationals, and yet another one is coming back with a medal. That and more in sports.
You're watching 25 News now at 10.
This is breaking news from 25 News Now.
All right, breaking news tonight at 7:22 p.m. tonight. Victoria police officers responded to a residence in the 600 block of East Wan Lin Street. When officers arrived, they found an unconscious man lying in the yard. After investigating, it was revealed that the 67-year-old man was dead. His death currently being investigated as a homicide. Officers believe this was an isolated incident and the general public is not in danger. Now, we also have this late word, an Amber Alert. Abduction in San Antonio. Victim is 7-year-old white female Amariana Benavides, who was last seen wearing a pink shirt, purple shorts, and no shoes. Call 911 if you have information. Goliad Mayor Brenda Moses' husband banned from City Hall by a 3-2 vote of City Council persons. During their June 14th meeting, the Goliad Advanced Guard reports the City Council planning an investigation into a verbal altercation May 10th between the mayor's husband, Jason Moses, and Goliad Finance Officer Sherry Kunstler. Jason Moses banned from City Hall until the council has received the results of the investigation. Ganado police asking for the public's assistance for information on a pile of trash that was dumped in the open area in the north part of Ganado. Any information on this can be anonymously called in to the Ganado Police Department at 361-771-2800 or by calling the Jackson County Sheriff's Office Dispatch non-emergency phone number at 361-782-3541. The recently fired police chief of the small city of Eagle Lake speaking out, disputing the allegations made against him. Christopher Abbott terminated last week for 9 policy violations. That's according to his termination letter. He says this all has to do with the city manager that has taken office within the last year.
Something isn't adding up for former Eagle Lake Police Chief Christopher Abbott. He says under the new city manager, he was stripped of some of his job responsibilities, and now they're listed as reasons that he's been terminated. We spoke to the city manager, who tells us he didn't strip him of his responsibilities. He says that's what the city's ordinances dictate of how the city should be run.
The only reason I came forward with this information is once I heard that Chief Abbott was fired and the allegations, I knew them to be false.
This is former Eagle Lake police officer Christopher Cannon, who we first told you about last month. Within a month of being hired, he was accused of being married to 2 women at the same time, which he says is untrue. Back in October, when the allegation was raised, the city launched an investigation.
I started the investigation, Jackson came in, and that entire investigation Jackson handled.
Jackson is the new city manager in Eagle Lake. That's Charles Tink Jackson. He started last September. He told ABC 13 over the phone that he took over the investigation because now former police chief Christopher Abbott did not do a thorough job.
He made it abundantly clear that he is in charge of all hiring and firing.
Ultimately, after 11 months of being chief, Abbott was suspended while a third-party investigator looked into allegations against him. Last Wednesday, he was given this termination letter saying he violated 9 policies. Of those, 4 have to do with Cannon. Aside from the bigamy investigation, he did not disclose Cannon's past criminal history. As far as the other allegations in the termination letter, Abbott says some were duties of the city manager. Another dealt with an audit done by the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement.
This is like nitpicking down to just like every little thing. Trying to make a huge, like a mountain out of a molehill.
Jackson says he stands behind what's happened so far, and he's going to let the termination letter speak for itself. In Eagle Lake, Micah Hatfield, ABC 13 Eyewitness News.
The National Weather Service had excessive heat warnings for all 6 counties in the region today. The National Weather Service reports dangerously hot conditions with heat index values from 115 to 123 degrees were expected until 8 o'clock tonight. The Salvation Army of Victoria's cooling station at 1302 North Lewis Street opens when the temperature rises above 95 degrees. Salvation Army of Victoria Commanding Officer Captain Kenny Jones tells us they are averaging 4 to 6 people in the cooling station daily. Let's take a first look at your forecast with First Warn Storm Team Chief Meteorologist Mac Pettis. Yes, Mac, it was another very hot day in the Crossroads, and yes, we have some activity in the tropics.
That's the big headline in the weather office. Obviously, the heat has been going on for a while and there's no real break coming in sight. But the tropics are also doing strange things. Now, this is June, folks. It's the beginning of the season, and generally we don't see 2 or 3 tropical systems develop very rapidly, but we are doing it this year. The first one is Brett. Brett is the first concern that we have. Invest 93 will likely strengthen up, but Brett is headed pretty much for the Lesser Antilles, or what I call the little bitty islands, and they're going to get a direct hit probably in about 3 or 4 days. So we'll be talking more about that coming up in just a moment.
Mac, thank you. Yeah, it was definitely a hot Juneteenth in the Crossroads Monday, adding the climate conditions to the holiday for some residents. A Victoria Mall store manager told us most customers showed up earlier in the day to beat the heat. Weekends are generally the busiest shopping time periods, but with the day off, a lot of customers came in to make an item return.
Yes, more returns than normal Mondays, definitely. But again, we have customers coming in and shop. If it's still a holiday, so we're still doing well.
Store employees told us that at the very least, people can get out of the heat and into an air-conditioned environment. Governor Greg Abbott closing out the 88th legislative session with a record-setting number of vetoes. The Texas state constitution grants the governor 20 days after the end of a regular legislative session to veto bills passed by Congress. KXAN reports as of now, Governor Abbott has vetoed 77 bills. He says he is vetoing these bills because the legislature has not delivered a bill reducing property taxes. Governor Abbott on Monday did approve a record $1.19 billion in new spending for the Texas A&M University system, including money to freeze undergraduate tuition and fees for Texas residents for the next 2 years. KBTX reports the new spending, which was contained in several bills, is the first time in history the Texas A&M system has gone over $1 billion in new funding from the state. Allies for suspended Attorney General Ken Paxton lobbying hard for the ability to dismiss the allegations against Paxton without the need for an impeachment trial. House impeachment managers are pushing back, warning this committee against adopting rules that would pave the way for a so-called sham trial. The 7-member committee expected to issue its recommendations to the full Senate on Tuesday. The trial expected to start no later than August 28th. The Chisholm Trail Heritage Museum hosted a Juneteenth celebration tonight in Cuero. The museum invited the community to learn about the history of Juneteenth and its impact on the country. Sarah Bird shared her work with black cowboys and rodeos through the 1970s. Other speakers shared the importance of the holiday to our region. People at the event could still catch the exhibit just across the hall as the event continued. Along with learning, the event was a party for black joy, pride, and freedom. And this brings us to your viewer poll this evening. Scan that QR code on your screen to vote now. The question is, did you attend any Juneteenth events over the weekend? Yes or no? Let's look at the numbers. 5% of you, the voters, said yes, and 95% said no. We thank you for voting. We want to hear from you. Come to crossroadstoday.com/vote to take part. Community members and city leaders gathered in Galveston today to celebrate Juneteenth. Speakers included Texas State Representative Sheila Jackson Lee and Al Edwards Jr., who carried on the work of his father, architect of legislation, leading to Juneteenth becoming a national holiday. The event was in celebration of the anniversary of the arrival of Major General Granger and some 2,000 Union troops to announce and enforce the emancipation of slaves in Galveston.
Galveston, Texas, June 19, 1865. General Order Number 3. The people of Texas are informed that in accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free.
Ashton Villa had served as the Confederate headquarters during the Civil War. Fort Worth hosted Opal Lee's annual Walk for Freedom on Monday, and the grandmother of Juneteenth told KXAS she's not slowing down anytime soon. The annual walk led by Lee is 2.5 miles long, representing the 2.5 years it took for news of the Emancipation Proclamation to reach enslaved people in Texas. The 96-year-old Lee spent decades pushing for Juneteenth to become a federal holiday. Over the years, the walk in East Fort Worth has grown larger. Lee said it has grown larger both in size and overall meaning. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Crossroads Today. Hit the like button and click the notification bell, and you'll be part of our YouTube channel, Crossroads Today. Stay with us. Coming up on 25 News Now at 10. A suspect is dead after police were involved in a shooting in Phoenix today. Also ahead, authorities in Kansas investigating suspicious white powder found in 100 letters mailed to Kansas state lawmakers. In Phoenix today, a trooper with the Arizona Department of Public Safety was shot, and the suspect in the shooting crashed a vehicle and was pronounced dead. Details about the circumstances of the shooting not yet released, and the condition of the trooper unknown. Aerials showed massive police presence where the suspect apparently crashed a car into a brick wall. Authorities have not released the name of the suspect or cause of death. Kansas Bureau of Investigations looking into who sent several Kansas state lawmakers and other public leaders mail with a suspicious white powder. The KBI says over 100 letters containing the powder were reported.
Kansas legislators that are Republicans are being targeted.
Senator Molly Baumgardner received this letter.
There is some message. The message is somewhat unclear, but it was intended to be threatening.
The message reads, in part, "It is important not to choke on your ambition," and it's signed, "Your secret despirer." Included in this letter was a white powder. Roughly 30 Kansas lawmakers around the state received something similar. All of them so far have been Republicans. And now the Kansas Bureau of Investigations has to respond to each one.
We're using our finest resources and it's being squandered because someone or a group of people are very deliberately trying to make a point.
And check out the return address.
Whoever sent this, spent the time to look up addresses. It now appears that return addresses aren't for actual individuals, but they are actually addresses for churches.
So now, every one of the 165 lawmakers in Kansas are on alert.
Everybody has to be concerned. Everyone has to take this and any subsequent threats like this very seriously.
The Kansas Bureau of Investigation sent out an update saying the powder does not contain any concerning, quote, biological agents, unquote. A 72-hour ceasefire now in effect in Sudan following intense fighting between the Sudanese army and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces. The latest truce comes as the United Nations hosted a conference today to raise critically needed funds to support relief efforts both inside and near Sudan. They need $253 million, with the South Sudan response needing $96 million. Figures show that international donors have only contributed 10% of the total figure. Summer is the perfect time of year to head out to the beach and relax, but there are things you need to know before heading out.
The beach is a great place to relax, especially in the summer, but swimming in the ocean or any body of water can be risky. According to the website Travel Lens, New Smyrna Beach in Florida took the top spot for shark attacks with 32 since 2010, a far cry from the 9 up the coast at Myrtle Beach. When it comes to surfing, Travel Lens ranks Panama City and Daytona Beach, Florida, with the highest number of fatalities with 24 and 16 respectively. Officials say keep the following safety tips in mind whenever you or a loved one enters the water. Number 1, swim when a lifeguard is present and monitoring your area. Number 2, don't swim alone. Have at least one swim buddy that can get help. Number 3, stay in your zone. Don't swim in dangerous rip currents or areas that surpass your swimming abilities. And lastly, check weather warnings and water conditions before you head out. With this Medical Minute, I'm Mike Ajachi, ABC News.
President Biden in California today. Actually, this is video of Premier Xi and Anthony Blinken. So let me tell you about this. President Biden in California today touting the work his administration has done to fight climate change. He met with Governor Gavin Newsom to tour wetlands in the Bay Area. Biden highlighted the billions of dollars in the Inflation Reduction Act to help curb the effects of climate change.
The impacts we're seeing in climate change are only going to get more frequent and more ferocious and more costly. Last year alone, natural disasters in America caused $165 billion in damage.
He also included funds to restore habitats across the country, like the wetlands that serve as barriers to rising waters and severe weather events.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. 84 degrees out about there right now. We're looking at the feel is 96. So think about that about 9:30 in the evening. We are looking, of course, at our high temperature today, 98 degrees. Okay, we didn't make 100. Big deal. It's hot enough, it is humid enough, and it's oppressive enough to really get to you. So I hope that you've figured out how to deal with the heat. Take plenty of breaks, get plenty of fluids, and don't overdo it during the middle part of the day. Coming up, we're going to be talking about the tropics. They woke up today. Looks like it's going to be very busy out there, and we'll have the latest coming up in a moment. Good evening, everyone. The heat rolls on. There's not a whole lot of change. This is our high temperature today, 98 degrees. San Antonio at 105 set a new record high temperature, and Del Rio set a new record high of 109. But can you imagine 115? That's on the sidewalks of Laredo. Gosh, I mean, your tennies will melt with that. Is there any hope? No, there's no hope. I mean, these temperatures are at least going to be with us for another 10, 12 days. This is the forecast highs for tomorrow, so we're looking still. Eventually, we're going to break that 100-degree mark right about there, but so far we've been hovering just below it. But that's the reality of it all, and that is, you know, our climate change, and this heat wave is going down to the record books, and it's only June. We still got July, August, September to deal with. This afternoon, we popped a couple of big thunderstorms out near Brady and near Junction. They popped with the afternoon heating, got real strong, dropped a lot of hail, and then they're all collapsing. So they had a lifetime of maybe 2 to 3 hours. So it went from zero to storm, hail, rain, and collapse, all in maybe less than 3 hours. So it's pretty interesting. We got the cloud cover. That's all we got. So all that is pretty much going away. Heat advisories continue for all of the county areas, as Don mentioned. So not only that, but it goes all the way to Wichita Falls, all the way south. As in terms of any rain, we're only going to hit those pop-up big thunderstorms. So in terms of any cooling, none of this changes for at least 10 days. What has gotten really interesting is the tropics. This is actually Brett, and this will be the C storm. They developed on the same day behind each other. Right now you can see how Brett is going to become a hurricane and pretty much go right across Barbados, Martinique, and those islands, and then cross into the Caribbean before it starts its big question mark. Is it going this way, or this way? I'm going to say at this hour that it'll go up into the Atlantic and then get pulled away. But here's the interesting part. Up here, the conditions are not conducive for it to keep going. So once it becomes a hurricane and slows down, it'll be less than a big storm here, and it'll probably weaken because it's running into that shear that we've been talking about. That's basically an opposing wind. So instead of coming along with the southeasterly trades, it's running into this opposing wind, and that's what's going to weaken it. Here's another view about 7 days. Here's storm number 1, storm number 2. By the way, these little things, we call them wind particles. It's just an idea of which way the wind is blowing, and you can see that circulation there and here as well. This one is going to go pretty much into the Atlantic, but this is the one that's going to be headed right to the Lesser Antilles and then into Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic. And by that time, and this is as far as I can go on this machine, it should be somewhere in the Atlantic, and if it is, it's okay. I wouldn't, you know, I wouldn't run for the hills just yet, but certainly we're going to monitor this and watch it very carefully as it evolves, because it should hit Barbados on Thursday or Friday of this week. So it's like now, okay? For those of you in Port Lavaca, you get up at 83, afternoon temperature 94. Of course, the breeze is nice, but don't forget, get plenty of fluids anyway. For those of you in Cuero, you're getting up to 102 as a high temperature. Wish I had better news for you, but I don't. We're looking at about 100 degrees right on through the next 7 days. The heat index staying in the 115 to 120 heat index level. That's your 7-day forecast. Reminding everybody, we do have a QR code. If you scan this, we can get all these messages and information to you at any time when you need them. That's it from the weather front. We'll toss it over to Gino.
Thanks, Mac. The Victoria Generals took on the Seguin River Monsters tonight. See if they won after the break. At a Crossroads, multiple gymnasts are competing in Oklahoma and looking to become national champions. A few full-force gymnasts are at the U.S. Championships in Tulsa, and the competition started yesterday, June 18th. 3 of the 5 athletes from the local gym are returning national champions. The 3 are Callie Ganaway, Daisy Rickman, and Serenity Hull. Rickman won the Level 8 trampoline last year and looking to win back-to-back titles this year. Ganaway took silver last season, but won the national title a couple years ago on trampoline. Serenity is also a former national title winner in Level 6 trampoline. Ganaway said she feels no pressure this year and is excited to go back and do well. The newest trick she is trying to perfect is called a Rudy double full on double mini.
I've definitely came a pretty long ways because, I've gotten way better than I was. I just try to think good thoughts that I can do it and that I'll do good.
Rickman will be returning with a medal from double mini competition. After this pass, she took 2nd place out of 65 athletes in the nation. Before her competition, Rickman spoke about how she has been preparing for this nationals, and this year was going to be tougher because she's competing at a higher level this year.
Landing the double full and getting your arms up so that you don't fall in the Rudy. I've been practicing and we got no routines this year, so we'll have higher difficulty.
In the tumbling events today, Ganaway took 11th, Serenity Hull took 32nd, while Kendall Helms made the top 10, placing 9th, and Lorelei Garza took 12th in trampoline. But new tonight, Lorelei Garza wins a bronze medal in double mini. She finished in 3rd place out of 71 girls in the nation. The girls will compete in trampoline tomorrow, and Ganaway and Rickman will be teaming up to compete in synchro trampoline on Wednesday. This is the first time they will be competing together at nationals. The girls' best event is tomorrow, so hopefully there will be some gold in their future. The Victoria Generals are back in Seguin and looking to repeat what happened last night, which was a dominant performance. The Generals picked up where they left off. Tice Armstrong, who had 2 doubles and 3 walks, along with 3 RBIs last night, started off with a double in the top of the 1st to bring in the first run of the night. RJ Patrick was not to be outdone, bringing in another run in the top of the 2nd inning. Score now 2-0 Generals. The Generals added to their lead in the 3rd, yet scoring another run while holding Seguin scoreless. That changed in the 4th inning. For the Generals, they scored 2 runs, the most they would score in the night, while the River Monsters put up their first run. And things looked as if it was going to be an easy night for the Generals until Seguin came firing back with a 4-run inning in the 8th to bring the game within 2. In the final inning, the Generals were shut out and the River Monsters scored 1 but could not complete the comeback, losing by 1. Final score 7-6. The Generals are back at home and they'll host the Acadiana Cane Cutters. First pitch at 7:05 at Riverside. Well, that's your sports. Don, back to you.
All right, Gino, thank you. Stay with us. Coming up on 25 News now at 10, we'll take a last look at your weather. Plus, a star pop singer hurt after a cell phone was thrown at her face during a concert. A search underway for a missing submersible that carried people to view the wreckage of the Titanic. The U.S. Coast Guard said a search was underway Monday off the coast of Newfoundland. The commander of the 1st Coast Guard District held an afternoon briefing to give an update on the rescue operation currently underway in search of the 21-foot submersible vessel that was carrying people to view the wreckage of the Titanic.
Yesterday afternoon, we were notified by the operator of the submersible vessel that it was overdue, and it had 5 persons on board the submersible. So we're working very closely at this point to make sure that we're doing everything that we can do to locate the submersible and rescue those on board.
OceanGate Expeditions owned the missing vessel in 2021. OceanGate Expeditions began an annual voyage to chronicle the deterioration of the Titanic. The expeditions would include about 40 paid tourists who would take turns operating sonar equipment in the 5-person submersible. Pop star Bebe Rexha recovering after being hit by a cell phone thrown at her while on stage during her New York concert. Video showed Rexha bringing her hands to her face as she is struck, then dropping to her knees as crew members rush onto the stage. She was taken by EMS to an area hospital in stable condition. The New York Police Department says a 27-year-old from New Jersey arrested and charged with assault in connection with the incident. The concert was cut short for obvious reasons. That is just so ridiculous. That could put an eye out. I mean, I'm not kidding. That could put an eye out easily.
I understand throwing clothes, but a phone?
A phone. It just doesn't make any sense.
Assault with a cell phone. Right. I mean,
it doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't make any sense at all.
But 100-degree temperatures every day in June around here
doesn't make sense either.
Too. Well, it kind of does.
Well, you know, summers are hot, but is this the regular summer?
Welcome to Victoria.
Yeah, hello. Well, all of Texas is dealing with the brutal heat, folks. From Wichita Falls to Brownsville. I mean, Laredo was 115 today. We were at 98. We're still pushing to that 100-degree mark. So if we're 99 or 100, it doesn't really matter. It's hot, it's humid, and it's dangerous if you overexert yourself in the middle part of the afternoon. So take it easy. Whatever you've been doing so far, you're doing good. It's probably 10 more days of activity. And just remember that Hurricane Brett will be hitting the Barbados area on Friday. So we've got tropical activity to track.
All right, thank you. And finally tonight, an orange-colored baby monkey on display at a zoo in Yokohama, southwest of Tokyo. The long-tailed species called Francois leaf monkey, baby born on May 29th. Visitors say they were surprised at how different the color was from the parent. The baby will feed on its mother's milk until about 3 months old and then start eating leaves. All right, thank you all, and thanks for joining us for 25 News Now at 10. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Crossroads Today. Join Carolina Astrain, meteorologist Trey Mining. 25 News Now Sunrise starting at 5 a.m. Good night, everybody.